The table saw can do several things really well, but one of the things that it needs a little help with is crosscuts. So let's take some time to look at what crosscuts are, how you use the table saw to do that, and some of the things to think about as you go along. First thing we need to do is understand what we mean by crosscut. So a crosscut is when you are cutting across the grain of the wood. So a rip cut is with the grain from one end to the other. Now the table saw needs a little bit of help when it's making a crosscut sled for three primary reasons. Let's take a look at them. First reason is because the blade is spinning towards you, and as it's spinning towards you, it's actually encountering more resistance than it does when it's making a rip cut. So let's see this in practice because it's a useful thing to know. So here's my 83-year-old dad making what is basically a rip cut, except in this case he's using an axe. Look how easily he's able to do this, and that's because he is cutting with the grain of the wood, as opposed to me trying to use an axe to make a crosscut, where all that happens is it cuts those early fibers or those surface fibers. So that's the same thing as using the table saw. If you're using it to make a rip cut, that's one thing, but if you're using it to make a crosscut, you have to deal with the resistance of the fibers, the fact that the blade is spinning towards you and encountering that resistance. And then lastly, you've got to recognize that you've got the long edge of the wood perpendicular to the blade. So without some sort of aid to prevent the pivoting of the wood, you could end up having a really serious table saw accident. So there are a number of jigs that we use to help make cross-cutting on the table saw a much easier thing to do. Let's take a look at the two primary ones that are out there. The first is a crosscut sled, and a crosscut sled allows you to support a piece of wood as you're moving it across the blade. So let's take a look at how you actually use it. The first step is to load the sled onto the table saw. You want to make sure that you align the runner with the miter slot on the table saw, and that runner should fit perfectly into that slot. The next step is to raise or lower the blade so that the teeth are just past the surface of the wood. One hand gripping the front corner and pulling that corner towards you, and the other hand holding the back fence, push all the way through and pull all the way back. Don't let go with the hand holding that edge until the blade has come to a complete stop. Reach down and turn the table saw off, but don't reach in to remove your piece of wood until the table saw has come to a complete stop. Making a crosscut sled for yourself is a really good early project to do. If you want to make your own, we have a link for you below to follow that tells you how to go about doing that. There are other kinds of jigs that you can use to make crosscuts, and one of those can look something like this, and this is known as a miter gauge. It has a back supporting fence, a runner that fits into the miter slot on the surface of the table saw, but the other nice thing is it also has the ability to change angles based on what you're making. There's a lot more to learn about the table saw, so click the button below to subscribe, or better yet, sign up for one of the beginning woodwork classes at the Florida School of Woodwork. You can find the website at schoolofwoodwork.com.